This conference will now be recorded.
It will be same recap, Rakesh. If you have any doubts, I'll talk to you personally, Rakesh. It's not a problem. But it will be a recap. Just try to understand what I'm going to do it in Python. That's it. So I'm going to start my Jupyter notebook. Just closing my old Jupyter notebook. I'm starting my Jupyter. Ranjini, are you there? Okay. So let me start with okay. So here as it is, I'm just giving an heading, principal component analysis. And here it is markdown, not your coding part. Here it should be markdown if you want to do the documentation part. I'm going to execute, and here I'll just change it. I'll not mention the university data set. I'll just put it as PCA with clustering for your understanding. PCA with clustering. So I'm going to put it over here as PCA with clustering operation. So I'm going to execute this. So, and I'm going to import necessary libraries which needs to be utilized from your environment. That is your pandas as PD, numpy as np, matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. I'm going to execute this. And this is for your visualization part. It is not mandatory that you need to run this line of code. If you wish, you can run this line of code, or if you don't want, you can ignore this particular line. And this is used for your getting your present working directory. PWD gives you present working directory. When it comes to your RStudio, it is get WD. Get WD. This is my particular present working directory, that is users admin desktop / Jupyter files commented. So this is my present working directory. And this one you can see here, I'm going to read my local file, that is universities.csv, into my file called as UNI. Into my file called as UNI is equal to pd.read_csv. This pd is nothing but my pandas pd, and this is your read_csv is a function. Read_csv is a function, and this is my path under my C folder, C drive. This is my path, and this is my universities.csv is your file name, and storing it in a variable called as UNI. I'm going to execute that. Here you can see it is uni.add function. I'm going to run this, and I'm going to just take it as top 3 records. First 3 records I'm taking. So if I want to see the summary statistics of this data set, UNI, I need to use a function called as uni.describe. So this is your data set name, and this describe function will give you the summary statistics like mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, 25%, 50%, 75%, count each and everything. So in your R, it will be done by summary function. So read this. So count of all the columns, mean of all the columns, standard deviation of all the columns, you're getting in this way. This is used by function called as describe. And this one will give you uni.shape. Uni.shape will give you the dimension of your data set. Dimension of your data set, that is your, That is your number of rows and
Total number of columns.
total number of rows and columns. So I'm going to execute this uni.shape, and remember, this shape is not your function. This shape is your keyword. This shape is your keyword. Okay. So if you want to implement, Rakesh, are you there, Rakesh? Rakesh, tell me what is the function to implement your principal component analysis in RStudio. Yesterday we have done it.
PCA.obj.
Wrong, Rakesh. Wrong, Rakesh. That is your variable name. We have kept it right. PCA obj is our variable name. So
Okay.
next, one sec. Neha, can you tell me the function name?
Princom.
Neha,
Oh, sorry.
yes, it is the print comp. Print comp is a function which is used to
PCA. Find out the PCA
yes,
of.
which is used to, don't tell it as find out PCA. If you tell it as find out PCA, that becomes something different. So tell them that. So in order to implement your principal component analysis, use a word called as implement. So in order to implement principal component analysis algorithm, there is a function called as print comp. So when it comes to your Python, if you want to implement your principal component analysis, you need to import a function called as PCA. This is your function. You should import PCA from which library? From sklearn.decomposition. sklearn.decomposition, you need to import PCA. And sklearn.preprocessing, if you want to do your scaling of your data, you should use scale function. So I'm going to import these two libraries. So whenever I'm telling you some libraries, just remember those library names. Like for example, hardly in Python, you can remember 7 to 8 simple basic like NumPy, Pandas, matplotlib.pyplot, and stats.learn.api, and sklearn.preprocessing.scale or sklearn.decomposition, and like this. Try to remember at least two, and remember matplotlib, numpy, pandas, these three are mandatory for any algorithms. First three lines are mandatory. Apart from these three, remember another 7 library names. Like sklearn is one, under that this is one module, under that this is another module. Like that, at least try to remember 7, totally 7 plus 3 10. At least try to remember those 10 libraries. So here it is with respect to your sklearn.decomposition and sklearn.preprocessing. These two are your functions you are importing from this particular libraries. So I'm going to run this line of code and keep it available. So here, so what does this line of code does? Manju, can you explain me what does this line of code does? Ratnesh, can you explain me what does this line of code does?
Hi, Yogesh. This line of code will omit the first row and it will allocate to unit.data.
Yes, it will omit your first column, not first row. It will be first column part, because I'm writing it as anything written within square parentheses, rows comma column. See here, I'm writing it as like this. So first column, from first column you are considering, because you're not considering your 0th column, because in your Python the index starts from 0. It will be starting from your first column. So I'm deleting, or I'm not including my first column, 0th column. That is nothing but my university name. University name. If you want to see further, you can see it here, clarify it here by using this. Yes. So this one you are not including. From this point you are including, and you are going to create a new data set into putting a variable called as uni.data. That's it. So uni.data, I'm going to use this and add function. I'm specifying with 4 records. So you can see that uni.add. So this one did not run. So here I'm seeing that uni.data is nothing but your modified data set apart from your university name. You can see university name is not there. I've only included the numerical data. Now, this line, can somebody explain me this line?
Yeah,
This block? Anyone can take the
uh,
initiative.
we are scaling the uni.data
Yes.
to standardizing and normalizing
Yes. By
from
using a scale function,
normalizing
you are standardizing it. Yes.
scale function. Yeah,
Yes.
the
So
type
what
is
about this line?
choosing as a object is an array type. When you
Okay.
scale the data set is not a data type, and we
Yes,
are
correct.
converting the array into the data frame using
Yes. But if you use
the
this, you
pandas
are going to
function.
convert that.
Pandas
Yes. Fine. So I'm just going to explain you this line by line. So here I'm going to take scale function, which is a part of your sklearn.preprocessing, and this uni.data. This uni.data is nothing but your this data set. You are scaling this data. Earlier it is your original data set. You are applying your scale function in order to standardize or normalize. In order to standardize or normalize, you are using this function and storing this in a variable called as uni underscore normal. So uni underscore normal, and I am also using this uni underscore norm. Yes.
Yogesh, when you're doing the scaling, why the columns and name is getting changed to like a 0 to the numbering? We can't put it back
Obvious.
original name.
No. You cannot put it. If you want, you can hard code it again.
We
If you
can
want, you
rename
can.
again, reassign.
Yes. Reassign it. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because if you are working on a project, you'll be able to understand in an easier way. If you want, you can rename 0 to set top 10 to 1 to top 10 to acceptance ratio. You can do. That's not a big deal. Okay. So now coming to this part, I'm going to first scale my data and see what is the type of my data, and also I'm going to display my this thing. Let me execute this line. Let me execute this particular block. I'm getting an error. So numpy.nd array object has no attribute called as C. If you execute the same as head, because it is not your data frame format, it will not display your first 5 records. If it is in data frame format only, it will display your first 5 records. In order to check whether it is in what format, you can use this type of uni underscore normal. Now it is going to display as n dimensional array type. So for n dimensional array type will not have a function called as head. So that's the reason you're getting that error. So if you want to convert that nd array format data, that is university underscore normal, into your original data set, not your original data set, into your tabular format like this, you need to use this. But if you want to see how does uni underscore normal looks in terms of array, I will just write it as uni underscore normal here. Uni underscore normal here. See, this is how it looks. This is your SAT score, top 10, acceptance ratio, student faculty, expenses, and graduation. First, second, third, fourth, like this. But I don't want to see it in this way. I want to see it in a tabular format. So that's the reason I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to convert that into pd.data frame. And also I'm going to use that in a variable called as uni underscore normal 1. Here I'm going to put it as uni underscore normal 1 dot ed. So I'm going to convert your array data type. Array data, this is your uni underscore normal, into data frame format by using your pandas library. I'm passing this uni underscore normal. I'm passing this uni underscore normal as your parameter here, and storing this new data set into uni underscore normal 1. So let us see how does your data looks. And also here, okay, first I'll execute this, then I'll write. See, earlier it was in your array format. Now everything is in your tabular format. That is nothing but your data frame format. And if you want to see what is the type of this, here you can just, I'm going to copy this and put it over here, and I'm going to change it to normal 1 in order to see what is the data type. So earlier it was showing in numpy.nd array, and now it is showing it as data frame. Now it is showing as data frame.
Screen is
Now
not refreshing.
screen is not refreshing. One sec, let me refresh. Now I have refreshed it. Just check it out.
Yeah.
Yes, is it refreshed?
Yeah, it's came. Pandas data frame.
Yes. Now, I'm going to implement your principal component analysis. Principal component analysis. There is a PCA function. We imported this PCA, right, from sklearn.decomposition. We imported this particular function, right, PCA. I'm going to use that PCA function here. So I'm going to use that PCA function into a variable called as x here. X here. So after that, I'm going to fit this x dot fit underscore transform. So if you want to implement your principal component analysis directly, you can, instead of writing it as PCA dot fit underscore transform, you can pass this PCA variable to your x variable, and then you can use that x also. But why I'm using this is, if you want to get some values here in the next coming lines, it will not work. So that's the reason I'm creating this variable called as x. So as of now, try to understand this. I'm pushing this PCA function to a variable called as x, and I'm fitting this x. Fitting this x, fit is underscore transform, is used to implement your principal component analysis for this PCA function x. On which data set? On your normalized data set. On your normalized data set, I'm going to fit your principal component analysis and store it in a variable called as PCA underscore values. PCA underscore values. I'm going to execute this line of code. So slightly it is difficult than your R, but comparatively, if you learn both, at least if you don't remember the syntax, at least try to remember some basic functions in each and every algorithm, some basics like your OLS, ordinary least square function, ordinary least square function, and logit function, and your agglomerative clustering function, k-means function, and these functions, if you just remember, that is enough, at least if you know the concepts. So I'm going to execute this line of code here. Now I want to see the PCA underscore values dot shape. So let me just comment this. So if I am going to execute this line of code, you'll be able to see it will be, I'm going to execute this. See, PCA underscore values dot shape. So PCA underscore values is what? What is your PCA underscore values? This is your model name. This is your
Model name.
model name, and this shape will give you what? Number of rows and columns. So what is this PCA underscore values will have now? Simple it is, very, very simple. Tell me, what is your PCA underscore values will have?
The weights, AI values.
Wait, once again.
PC values.
Yes, this is your PC value. See here, PC1, PC2, PC2, PC3,
Oh,
PC4, PC5, PC6
until
for
PT6.
your, yes, up to PC6 for first university, second university, third university. Like this, for all the 25 universities, your PC values will be displayed. Again, this is in the form of array. Again, this is in the form of array. If I'm going to execute this, if I'm going to execute this type function, you'll be able to see that it will be in your array format. It will be in your array format. So directly you can get your PC underscore values here. Now, suppose you want to get the proportion of variance percentage. Yesterday, by using your PC1, we got 76%. By using PC2, we got 13%. Like this, we got it, right? So if you want to get that in your Python, it is slightly a different function here, sorry, keyword. So you need to use this PCA function we created, right, by using x variable. So you should use that x dot explained variance ratio. This is your keyword to get your proportion of variance. To get your proportion of variance in your PCA, you need to use explained variance ratio. And directly you can run this also. Directly if you execute this part, see, I'm going to put this as ash, this as ash symbol. Directly I can put this only and I can execute this. But if I want to plot, or if I want to do some operation on this, operation on this, I'll not be able to. So that's the reason I'm creating one variable. That's it. So if I directly use this x is nothing but your PCA function. PCA function dot explained underscore variance underscore ratio. I'm going to get this PC1 part, variance of PC1. It is 76.86. Second one, 13.11. So this one is 4%. So yesterday we got same, right? If you use all those things, you're going to get ultimately 100%. You can get your cumulative, but there is no any cumulative direct. You should calculate it by using some customized format. I'm going to show you that in the next coming lines. So this is your PC1 percentage, PC2, PC3, PC4, PC5, PC6 percentage. So I'm going to store all this percentage in a variable called as var. That's it. I'm going to execute this over here. Now, if you want to get your weights, or it is also called as coefficients. Yesterday we discussed, right? AI1, AI2, AI3, these are called as your weights. If you want to get that, you need to use a function, a keyword called as components underscore. So here I'm going to remove this components underscore 0 to 6. I'm going to execute this. So if I directly give it as x underscore components, it is going to give me 1, 2, AI1, AI2, AI3, AI4, AI5, AI6. This is your A21, A22, A23, A24, A25, A26. So totally you'll be getting 6 pairs of weights. 6 pairs of weights here. This is for SAT. This is for top 10, acceptance ratio, student faculty ratio, expenses, and graduation rate weights. So again, this is in your array format. Again, I'm not going to use the same type function, and I'm not going to check it out. So if you don't want to see all the weights, you can specify within how many weights you want. How many weights you want to display, it is up to you. It is up to you. So I don't want to see all 6. I don't want to see only, I want to see only 3, 0, 1, 2. I'm going to execute. So if you want to see only 0, 1, 2, it is going to take this. It is going to display this. If you want to see only 2, you can give it as 0 to 1. If you want to see all, you can give it as, if you give it as blank also, you'll be able to see all the weights, I don't want to see only 3 because this is your weights. I want to see all the weights. I'm going to run like this. Now, I want to calculate the cumulative percentage of variance. Like 76 plus 13 is how much you got? 76 plus 13, you got it as 89. 89 plus 4, somewhere you got it as 94.75. So I want to calculate that cumulative sum. For that cumulative sum, you need to use a sum function from your numpys. So we created your variable. Let me just go to your var here. Here is your var. So I'm going to just put it as type so that it will take some space so that I'll be able to show you that easily. See, explained variance ratio, right? So this gave you 76. 76 plus 13, 89. 89 plus 4, 94. Like this, if I want to take, you're going to use this numpy.cumulative sum function, which is available under your numpy. This function is available under your numpy, and you can use this round function. Round is nothing but you are rounding it off to a sub particular digits, decimal 6 digits or 4 digits or 5 digits, whatever you want, you can specify. Here I'm going to specify total number of decimal digits should be 6. And into 100. If I don't use this into 100 also, you are going to get, it will be like this, 0.76 something, but you can use this. And what is this var? Do you know what is this var? It is this 76. It will take, it will add the decimals, and also it will round it off to 6 digits, and 0.7686 it will take, and it will round it off to 6 digits, as I mentioned, 1 2 3 4 5 6 into 100. Into 100 will become your 76.8681 like this, and it is going to take the cumulative of sum, this one plus this one plus this one, like this it is going to display. And that one I'm going to store it in a variable called as var1. See here. But when it comes to your RStudio, in your RStudio, if you use that loadings of PCA OBJ, right? Loadings of PCA OBJ, automatically in one line you got your standard deviation, in second line you got your proportion of variance, and third line you got your cumulative proportion. But in your Python, you should write separately like this. Separately, that's the difference when it comes to your R and Python. R and Python. And you can see this. I'm next plotting here. Yesterday I shown you with respect to the bar plot, right? It plotted like this. It plotted like this. You are able to see that are arranged in descending order. So if you want to plot it in your variance with respect to your Python, you can use this plt.plot function, and this will plot your variance with respect to your line chart. Here I'm going to use this var1, this part I'm going to plot it. So you can see here it is var1 is having how much? 76.86. Sorry, here it is 76. And the second one, including 76 plus 13, it is 89. Third one, 94. Somewhere here, 97. Somewhere here it is 99. And somewhere here it is 100. Like this, I'm going to use this var1. If you want to change the color, you can change it accordingly. And if I, instead of passing your var1, if I pass it as var, first one is going to get you 76%, second one is somewhere around 13%, and 4%, 2%, 2%, 0.005 something. So it is going to display. So if you want your cumulative sum to be plotted, you can see on var1 variable. That's the difference. That's the difference. Clear? And next is your plots between PC1 and PC2. So if you use this PC underscore values, you get all the 0 to PC1 to PC6. So I'm going to create some variables like your x-axis and y-axis. You can plot it, right? X and y. So like this, I'm going to create PC1 into one variable, PC2 into another variable. So instead of x and y, I'm going to put it as PC1 and PC2 here. So here I'm going to put it as PC1. Here I'm going to put it as PC2. Here I'm going to put it as PC3. And I'm going to create it in terms of array and choose the values, that is your PC underscore values, zeroth column. Zeroth column, that is nothing but your PC1, because in your Python, the index starts from 0, means 0 to 5 means it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So PC1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm choosing your 0th PC, that is first column, and storing it in a variable called as PC1. Like this. Second one, I'm choosing it in PC2. PC3, I'm choosing it into this. So this part, first I'll just cut down these two, and here I'll just put it as PC1. So now you can see this is my PC1 for all the 25 universities. I've just written it as PC1. So if you write PC2, you're going to get PC2 for your all the 25 rows like this. But I don't want to display this. Rather than this, I want to plot your PC1 and PC2 like this by using your blue color circles. Here I'm going to put it as PC1, PC2. See, this is your PC1, this is your PC2. I've just plotted because it is your 2-dimension. I cannot give one more PC3 and I cannot plot it like this. Is it possible to plot it directly as PC3 here? It is not possible because human eyes or human brain is not capable of directly plotting your 3D images. You will not get it like this. If I put PC1 and PC2 here, because plot function, okay, let me just show you. Let me just show you that. PC3. See, you are getting like this. So where is your PC1? Where is your PC2? Where is your PC3 now? So this is your PC1 and PC2. But what about this? You will not understand anything. So in order to do this, we need to plot your 3D images. 3D images. But forget about your 3D images as far as now. So just take this into consideration. PC1 and PC2. So this PC1 and PC2 indicates this is your one university, this is another university, this is another university, like this. So this university will have all the 6 columns. This will have all the 6 columns like this. So that is what is your PC1 and PC2. If you want, you can add this to your original data set and you can display your university names. That and all is a separate part. So now this is your PC, and if you want to plot between PC1 and PC3 also, you can plot it. PC1 and PC3 will be like this, and if you want to plot between PC2 and PC3, it will be like this. It will be like this. And if you want, you can change this color to blue color, red color, whatever color you want as per your requirement. So I'm just showing you for the plotting purpose. It's of no use. So why I'm showing this is you can plot this into one cluster, this as another cluster, and this as another cluster. It is up to you how you want to form the clusters. Now, if you want to plot it, all the PC1, PC2, PC3 in your 3D images, you can use this 3D, but in real time I have not used till now this one, because generally using Python or RStudio we are not going to plot your 3D images. Very rare cases you might use these 3D graphs, but generally when we do some reporting people will do this in their ClickView, ClickSense or Tableau or Microsoft Power BI. They are going to do, but this is an additional library I'm going to show you as part of your curriculum. So this particular mplot 3D with respect to MPL underscore toolkits, and you can use this Access 3D. Access 3D is your function. You can use this Access 3D function and you can plot your 3D graphs. 3D graphs for your scatter plot. So even I too don't remember this. Very rarely, only once I've used for some web image. For some web image, only once I've used, not more than once. Now, coming to this. PLT, this figure is a function. This is a figure is a function, and this FIG, you are storing this PLT.figure in a variable called as FIG, and you are using this Access 3D figure. Access 3D, whatever we imported, right? That one you are using, and you are passing this figure here, and then you can plot your and storing it in a variable called as access. Then you can directly use a function called as scatter, and here you can change it to PC1, comma, and this one you need not have to worry because nobody will ask you for plotting your PC1, PC2, PC3 or PC4 for your real-time implementation. Just to show you how your 2-dimensional looks like this x-axis, y-axis, but if you plot it on 3-axis, how does it looks? So that is the reason this is one axis, this is another axis, this is another axis. Like this I'm going to display, and here I'm putting it as plus mark, or I'll put it as O. So I'm going to put it as O, red color. I have plotted PC1, PC2, PC3. But suppose if I ask you, what is the value for PC1? For example, this is your PC1. Let me choose this. Tell me the axis for PC1. Tell me the axis for PC2. Tell me the axis for PC3. 1, 2, 3. By seeing this point. Can you tell me? Probably you can tell for this, but exactly you cannot tell for this also. Exactly you cannot tell for this also. How can you plot it like this? You can plot like this, you can plot like this, you can plot like this. But this is a disadvantage when you plot it on your 2D. So that's the reason I told you in the initial days itself, human brain or human eye, because we are all humans, we are not able to visualize this particular point with respect to 3D image. Can you tell me the axis for PC1, PC2 and PC3 for this without seeing the data, by just seeing this graph? Will you be able
The
to?
left side is
Yeah, give a try. Left side is,
left is a y-axis and the bottom is a x-axis.
what about this then?
Yeah, that itself is a bottom, is a
Okay,
x-axis.
what about this one? So that's the reason we don't go for 3D plots by using your R or Python generally, because human eye itself is not capable of visualizing 3D images. So if you want to see 3D movies, generally we use a special goggles for that, right? Special goggles,
Yeah, right.
because that is the reason. That is the reason. I am just showing you this for understanding purpose. How does your 3D graphs look? How does your 3D graphs look? So because we are having how many PCs? PC1, PC2, PC3, PC4, PC5, PC6. So now I create one more PC4, PC5, PC6 by using 4, 5, 6. Then what will be the situation? So consider this, I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it here. PC4 I'm going to create. Just for example, PC4 I'm going to create. Now I'll give PC4 also in my 3D image. Then how does it look? If I give it here, PC4. Can you tell me how does it look, PC4, if I pass that? I'm going to execute this now. Once again. Yes, even though if you plot it, it is not possible. It will take you to this thing, but there is no point of this, because Z directory will be your x-axis, y-axis, and you'll be getting some warnings. Element-wise comparison failed. Element-wise comparison failed because you are using more than 3, because this is your 3D image function. Access3D is your 3D 3D image function. Here I am passing it as my PC1, PC2, PC3, PC4. If I remove this, it will plot, but you will not be able to visualize it again. So that's the reason you should generally not go for 3D images. Forget about that. So that is a part of your 3D image. Now coming to your clustering process. So once we created your principal component analysis, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to implement my clustering operation here. So I'm going to create data frame using this PCA values from 0, 1, 2. That is your PC1, PC2, PC3. I'm going to create a new data set called as new underscore data frame df. This is just a variable name. This is just a variable name. These are your PC1, PC2, PC3, and I'm displaying your first three PCs. Sorry, first 5 values in your PC. So this is your PC1, this is your PC2, this is your PC3. Using these 3 columns, I'm going to implement clustering. Either I can implement my hierarchical clustering, or either I can implement my k-means clustering. For directly, if you implement your k-means clustering, it is a single line. So directly you can use import k-means function from your sklearn.cluster, and you can directly give this k-means function and then specify how many clusters you want. And you can fit it into on this particular variable called as new underscore df. This is the data set. So just simple, it is very, very simple. I'm going to implement your k-means. I'm going to implement your k-means here. I'm going to use a function called as k-means, which is a part of your sklearn.cluster library, and n underscore clusters. N underscore clusters is what? N underscore clusters is equal to 5. Means you are specifying I need 5 clusters, and you are storing that in a variable called as small k. Means you can give it as model name x1, x2, whatever you want you can give it, but I've given it as a k-means. and this variable, using this variable, I am fitting model on the dataset called as new underscore data frame, which is a PC1, PC2, PC3. So I'm not building your clustering based on your original SAT score top 10. I'm using PC1, PC2 and PC3, and I'm going to build your k-means cluster. Here there is no concept of your dendrogram, because why there is no concept of dendrogram in this part? Why there is no concept of dendrogram?
Because we're using the k-means
Yes, because you are using non-hierarchical clustering.
non-hierarchical.
Yes, that's the reason I'm not going to plot your dendrogram. Even though if you plot it, it will not work. Even though if you plot it, it is not going to work, because it is going to throw your error. And if you want to see which particular university belongs to which library, you can use this labels underscore keyword from your k-means output. That is your k-means library. So this belongs to your first one, belongs to third cluster, second one belongs to this, third one belongs to this. Like this, you can say this. And this is also of your array type. If you want to convert that into data frame, it will be pd.data frame. pd.data frame. Again, you can pass that into k-means variable, k-means underscore labels. You can pass that and you can make it as data underscore frame. So now I'm going to give you two assignments from this point. Please take down the notes on the two assignments. I think some of them have already done that part, yesterday's part, and they are pinging me on the answers on your WhatsApp group, but some of them have not done that. Please try to do. Assignment 1. Until this point, I've done it now. So tomorrow what you have to do is do until this point everything. After this, I want you to combine PC1, PC2, PC3 to your original data set. You should do this. Original data set should be here. PC1, PC2, PC3. You should combine these two, and choosing these PC1, PC2, PC3, you should implement your hierarchical clustering. I have shown you to implement your k-means clustering here. Take this as an assignment. PC1, PC2, PC3 hierarchical clustering implementation part, and plot your dendrogram. This is first assignment. And you should not use your original columns. You should use only PC1, PC2, PC3 and implement your hierarchical clustering and display the dendrogram. Second assignment, using PC1, PC2, PC3, calculate your student faculty ratio. Calculate means it is your predict student faculty ratio using PC1, PC2, PC3. Okay, and this should be on your multiple linear regression. Don't take it as logistic or something. Multiple linear regression using logit function. You should do using logit function. You should predict your student faculty ratio. Same yesterday's example only, but yesterday I showed you how to do your graduation rate, and yesterday I showed you how to do your hierarchical clustering in R, but today I've shown you how to do your k-means clustering in Python. Do it for hierarchical clustering and also for your student faculty ratio. Implement your multiple linear regression and try to predict the score. Try to build a model and send me the accuracy rate. Yeah, first question is nothing but using PC1, PC2, PC3, implement hierarchical clustering. Implement hierarchical clustering and combine this PC1, PC2, PC3 with your original data SAT score, top 10. Combine this and implement only using PC1, PC2, PC3, implement your clustering. Is it clear? Because we have already implemented your hierarchical clustering, but you should use PC1, PC2, PC3 and implement it. That's it. It's an additional way of practicing what you can do using PC1. If you implement this PC1, you can refresh your, if you implement this PCA, you can refresh your PCA, you can refresh your clustering, you can refresh your MLR, or you can call it as linear regression because it is one and the same. Linear regression, if you use only PC1, it becomes simple linear regression. If you use 3, it will become multiple linear regression. So what all we have done until this point, today's session, everything will be covered if you do this 3, apart from your logistic regression. Apart from your logistic regression, don't use this because, sorry, I told you logit, don't use this because that is for logistic regression, OLS. By using OLS, do this. Okay, and next topic. So next topics will be, I'm going to schedule it. Tomorrow's topic will be K nearest neighbor classification algorithm. This is another classification algorithm, and this logistic regression is also another classification algorithm. And tomorrow we are going to complete this KNN, classification using R or Python. Using R or Python with respect to theory implementation as well. Theory and implementation. In Monday, we'll complete Python implementation. In 2 days, we'll complete KNN, Naive, 2 days, decision tree, random forest. Put it as 3 days. And this is nothing but decision tree. Multiple decision trees is called as random forest. 3 days. We'll combine together, put it as 3 days. And this is separate, this is separate, this is separate, this is separate algorithm. And I'm going to show you one more algorithm called as SVM, support vector machine algorithm. This is your SVM part. This is probably 1 or 2 days max to max, not more than that. 2 days, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 2 to 3 days we need minimum for, sorry, not 2 days, minimum 3 days to 4 days we need for time series. So 2, 4, 5, 9. Next 12 days we are going to complete your syllabus of your machine learning part. Next 12 days we are going to no, Ranjini, that is not a part of this. Okay, so this ends your session. So especially whoever having less than 1 year overall year experience, less than 1 year overall years of experience, you can start applying for your jobs from coming next week. After next week session, after your decision trees and KNN, you can start hunting for your jobs. And if anyone is having more than 3+ years of experience, try to wait for another 12 days, that is 2 to 3 weeks, max to max. You can start applying for the jobs. But remember one thing, you should spend minimum 15 days to be thorough on all these algorithms. Daily dedicate 2 hours. You should be thorough of all the 7 algorithms, if not all, at least minimum 7 algorithms if you are having 2+ years of experience, if you want to showcase in data science. I'm telling you now itself, because first 10 to 15 minutes they'll be asking you linear regression and classification logistic regression. Next 10 to 15 minutes they'll be asking you 100% on decision trees and clustering. And then they'll come to your project. If they are not going for your KNN Naive, also not a problem, but whatever the resume projects you are going to put, that will be your 100% part. Okay, so don't take it as consideration, because just dedicate 15 days into 2 hours a day. whatever we have learned, we'll be able to cover. I'm not telling you to buy at some libraries, functions, but you should know the concept and you should be able to implement. If somebody gives you the data set and tell to implement some algorithm, you should be able to implement that. If not, if you are not remembering the syntax, not a problem. You can just Google it, you'll get the syntax. You're going to get the syntax.
So Yogesh, I have one
Yeah.
question here.
Yes.
So like from the interview point of view, like how will they expect us to explain any particular algorithm in terms of code or the steps like in the normal layman terms, how it
Normal
goes, or
layman terms. See, for example, they will ask you a question. So yesterday we had an interview with one of our ex-participant only in Accenture. So generally we gave him scenario. Like we gave him scenario in the sense we asked him. So consider that you joined our team. We are going to give you the data set. What is the first thing you are going to do? Can somebody ask me this? Can somebody answer me this question? Consider that you have been taken into my team. I'm going to give you the data set. What is the first step are you going to do? I'm going to tell you all these things. But tell me now.
Summary. You do the summary of the data set and
Directly summary.
We need
what
to
is the
check
business
whether
objective?
One sec, one by one, please.
Yeah, I'll see if the data is clean and I mean if there is any missing or if I want to do any transformation or something.
Who is this?
This is
Bharat?
Manjunath.
Manjunath. Okay. Apart from that, Manjunath's answer is, you can tell it. See, you'll check for outliers. Fine. Then Ratnesh will check for outliers. Then Satish.
We identify the what is the objective of this data actually.
Okay, fine. Then Bharat.
We need to find out from this data and what is the objective required.
One sec. Bharat.
Yogesh, we'll check whether the data is in a structured manner first.
Okay. Then
we need to
anybody
check whether
else?
any unwanted data are there, like unknown values are there. We need to remove it and we need to kind of clean it or something like that.
100%. See, one more important thing. 100% you need to clean it. 100% you need to clean it. That is for sure. Okay. And apart from that, see, whenever they ask you such type of question, you should tell them that first you are going to see what type of business problem it is, whether it
Yeah.
is retail, whether it is banking, whether it is insurance, whether it is some other industry. So first thing we should see this, but then if I don't know this particular industry, then I'm going to do some thorough study about this particular industry. It's doing some fundamentals, try to understand the domain, and then I'm going to see the data and whether this data is relevant or not. Then I'm going to see whether it is structured data, unstructured data with respect to the business problem. What is the business problem is? First is your industry. Second is your business problem. What are we going to achieve? What is our goal? What should we do using this data? And after that, your data comes. After that, your data comes, you should see whether whatever the data they are going to give or they have given, is it relevant to my problem? Is it relevant to my business problem? If then you are going to do your exploratory data analysis. That is nothing but your summary statistics, first moment, second moment, third moment, fourth moment, histogram, all these things you are going to do. That is called as your, remember this word called as exploratory data analysis. You should tell this word, identifying your outliers using box plot and identifying missing values by using your fill.na function, na.values function, all those things that comes under your EDA, exploratory data analysis part. Remember this word, you should exactly tell this word called as EDA. If you don't tell this word and if you know each and every line of code, then they will expect you to be at least tell this word called as EDA. First thing is your business, second thing is your business problem, and third thing is your, once I get the data, I'll try to understand the data and then I'm going to do exploratory data analysis. It is nothing but your cleaning, or you can call it as slicing and dicing of the data, slicing and dicing of your data. And next I'm going to check correlation. What is the correlation between my variables? And then if it is having a good correlation, then as usual whatever the models you can go on based on your requirement. Whether it is regression, you're going to for regression like this. You're going to do like this. This is the step they are going to explain them. And if you are explaining this part thoroughly, like this 4 to 5 steps: business problem, business understanding, and exploratory data analysis, correlation, and identifying the business problem into machine learning algorithm. If this you explain this particular functions 5 to 6 values, and then they will jump into your particular algorithm called as linear regression, linear or logistic regression. They will ask you, how do you measure the performance of linear regression? How do you measure the performance of linear regression?
R square.
Yes, you should explain that. Multiple R squared value. Multiple R squared. And the next question immediately they will ask you, what is the difference between multiple R squared value and adjusted R squared value?
Okay.
Multiple R squared and adjusted R squared. Don't worry. Next, immediately after the last session, I'm going to give you one document which contains your theory notes, whatever you have written till these days. I'm going to give that. And apart from that, I'm going to give you one interview questions format, and that will contain the minimum interview questions which you can answer at the time of interview. Don't only depend on this. Depend on your notes, whatever you have written, because I might have told some important points at the time of explanation. So depend on your notes. This is just for your references as a secondary source. And then they will jump into your project, and that one I'll take care. Don't worry, that one and all I'll take care. Sample CVs and all. And the next part is they are
But
going to
sorry,
ask you what type of projects. Yes.
Yogesh, regarding the project and coming about the people, those who are having the more than 5 years experience or 10 years. So if I cover for 2 years, something like that, see, if I am doing interview with my area, I can immediately identify the person is a fake person or the real-time experience person. What are the resume key? By seeing itself, I can identify the first two questions from they can tell. That's the reason whether how we going to cover in the, even though what are the class training we attended is all theoretical part, just we just did course and coming and giving us. When coming to real-time projects explanation, there we get a problem actually.
Yeah, that is what I'm going to, that is what I have explained everything. See, that is what I have not used your in course material with respect to academic training part. I have not used anything with respect to academic projects. So I'm going to give you some important links where you can sit and work on real-time projects also. Apart from that, I'm also going to give you some 2 to 3 projects which I have worked in my real-time companies. You should work on those projects.
Are these a common project every trainer is using for all the students?
No. This is not every trainer will be using. I'm using from my previous experience in my previous company, whatever I've used, that particular project I'm going to give you. Not from, you can go to any institutes, you can check what is their project and what is my project. I worked in CPG analytics. One project I'll give you from CPG department, and I worked in manufacturing analytics. One project I'm going to give you from this, and I worked in healthcare analytics. That one from 1 or 2 projects, and I worked on finance analytics. Yeah, that one I'll take. Data cleaning, slicing, and basic. Again, I am going to take one example on that as well. And healthcare analytics, vendor analytics, I worked on vendor finance analytics. That one also I'm going to give you one project like this. I've modified the client names and I'm going to use the projects, not something like your Titanic project, database projects from your listing.
Yogesh,
Yes.
Will there be like practical implementation, like using Python and R directly? Do we have to do coding and in front of them? Have
Not in
attended
front
some.
of them. See, some companies might ask you, some startup companies might ask you, hey, I'm going to give you data set, just do this. Either you can do it in R or Python, it depends. But out of 10 companies, hardly 2 companies might ask you to do the coding. Hardly 2 companies, not more than 2 companies. And remaining companies, everything will depend on your CV. Satish, you asked me about 5 years, 10 years of experience, right? 5 years, 10 years experience, they will
Yeah.
not ask you to sit and code. They will ask you to explain an end-to-end business projects. Like how did you handle the project? What was the challenge? What was your team size? What was the role of you? What was the role of your team members? Like each and everything they are going to ask you. And what was the team size? What was the duration? They'll ask you each and everything. For implementation for 2 years experience, 1 year experience, 2.5 years of experience, guys, they will ask you to implement some algorithms. Implement in the sense they will ask you based on your project. If you have put that some algorithm, you have put linear regression or logistic regression or clustering. No. Yeah, there are many tools coming into market, Julia and all. Those are all licensed, right? No, they will. So you can tell them that you are obviously specifying it as R and Python in your CV, right? No need to worry about those things. This is the major tool which is which is in market today. Don't worry about SAS, Julia, MATLAB, NIME, Weka, SPSS, Dell Statistica. These are multiple tools, but concentrate only on R and Python. Probably by 2020, if Julia is successfully launched as a freeware or something, they might pick up. Until and unless by that time R and Python will, across the globe there are almost like 2 million users actively using R and 1.8 million users actively using Python, Anaconda, Jupyter for machine learning implementation. And if you compare with SAS, Julia and all, it is not even 1 million, not even 1 million. Yeah, TensorFlow is also used for machine learning. That is a part of your deep learning. That is a library. That's
What is
your
the difference between the machine learning, deep learning, and Yogesh actually?
machine learning is what this we are studying all these things. Okay, so deep learning is something. Yeah, deep learning is used for your image analytics, computer vision, like your advanced analytics, advanced machine learning.
Okay.
That's the difference. But still, companies have not started using machine learning. Very less number of companies have started using deep learning. Not even some companies even have not started in machine learning itself. Forget about deep learning. In India, we are just in starting phase of machine learning. Still, we are in this size.
Yogesh, few companies, they are like they have the requirement particularly for Python development. I mean, they're looking
No.
for Python developers.
See, Python developer course is different, Alhari. Python developer course is you're going to become a Python developer, SQL developer, Java developer, like that. And this is purely for Python for machine learning. This is purely Python learning for machine learning, not for your developer job. Don't try to
That
become
is
a
a
developer.
core
Try to
developing
become.
the objects.
Yes, that is core development. For that, you don't need Jupyter, Pandas, NumPy. Don't need all those things because that is not a part of your developer. This I mean, NumPy, Pandas, sklearn, all these are part of your machine learning. Okay. One more thing for this weekend, try to refresh your college days decision trees. College days, if you have studied your decision trees, for this weekend, spend some 1 hour or 15 minutes or 20 minutes from your college days. Try to recall what is decision trees, and this will help you at the time of when I take your decision trees. Very important topic when it comes to your banking industry. Almost all the banks uses this decision trees algorithm and also logistic regression algorithm. Just for your refresh, just make it as suitable time for around 1 hour or something. And this is also called as your classification algorithm. And tomorrow we are going to discuss about your k nearest neighbor, and this is, don't get confused between your k means and k nearest neighbor. 99% of the interviewers will ask you the difference between knn and k means because both of them starts from k. Both of them starts from k. They'll ask you this. Don't get confused. This is your clustering algorithm. This is your classification algorithm. Now only I'm telling you, because yesterday also the same mistake was done and my student told the same answer. KNN is clustering, K means is something else, he told. So that's the reason. Even though I specified clearly K, both of them starts from K. KNN stands for classification, K means stands for clustering. Remember this. Okay, tomorrow again, same time, 7:30, and we'll try to complete KNN tomorrow. Okay, thank you all.
Yogesh. Good night.
Thank you.